Hello and welcome to Contributor Safety. So we have been working the past weeks on building high-performing teams. We've gone through inclusion safety and learner safety, and now we are at contributor safety, which is the third of the four stages of psychological safety. And I am George Hanch. I'm here with Kenna Miller, Alyssa Imes, and Victoria Bai as we go through contributor safety, which is the third stage of psychology of the four stages of psychological safety. And we know that psychological safety is what builds the environment for high performing teams. So with all of that said, shall we just dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. So contributor safety. Contributor safety satisfies a basic human need to make a difference. You feel safe to use your skills and abilities to offer a meaningful contribution. So that's the textbook um, definition from Tim Clark in the four stages of psychological safety. What do you all think about that? What are your thoughts or experiences with that?
I would think this might actually be one of my favorite stages because, like you said, humans have the innate want to be creative and to contribute and to, put their own flair or touch on whatever projects they're a part of and whatever teams they're a part of. So I think that can be super powerful and life changing for people when they're on a team that allows them the space and the ability to be creative and to try new things. So, yeah, I like this stage a lot, and I think it's super important to achieving the high performing team that you want. If you don't have a sense of safety where people can chime in and try new things and share their ideas and the space to do so, you're not going to reach that high performance level that you want.
Yeah, those are great points because you're not going to reach it, and I like to think of it as when you feel free to contribute, you're also less defensive because I know I've worked at a place. My mentor, his name was Don Byram, was absolutely amazing for setting up an environment like this. And we would contribute, and our work would get critiqued. Right? It was not everything we did was perfect, so it would get critiqued, and it would get massaged and moved around and whatever it may be. But when you have that contributor safety, the way that I saw those critiques was very helpful. It helped me get better at my job,
Mm.
and so that environment where we had that critiquing happening, it just helped me get better at my job. And that's the way it was given, and that's the way it was taken. And I've also worked in places where that was not a case, and we got a lot of critique, and it seemed very personal, and that was horrible. That's when I would hold back from putting out what I thought would be my best. Because if you have that cringe that you're going to get pounced on, you're never going to put your best work out. At least I wouldn't. Maybe you're probably all better human beings than I am, but I would hold back. I would.
Yeah, absolutely. I did just want to add real quick too. I think if you feel that you're able to contribute on an individual level, it also helps you collaborate and contribute in more of like a group setting or with other people as well. So by creating that environment where the feedback is very helpful and constructive, like you said, I feel like it makes you feel more willing and more able to work with other people on your team as well without that fear of, oh, what are they going to think? Or what if this isn't
Mhm.
right? So just leads to better collaboration and, higher performance, better outcomes, all those things.
That's a great point, because when you're feel free to work with other people on your team, the way you put it, everybody just gets better.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I love that. All right. And then really, so that was the definition of almost said learner safety, definition of contributor safety. And what it really is autonomy with guidance. So that speaks to what you were talking about, Ken, when we say autonomy with guidance. That means, you can have critiques, you can have people help, you know, arrange, shift, whatever it may be, whatever project you're working on in exchange for results. So the bottom line is we want results, right? And that's better for the organization, the individual, and the team. So how can we drive? I guess the question here is results are part of psychological safety. Psychological safety does not mean we shy away from results. It means we want to create the environment where we get better results, right? So what are some ways where you've seen the striving for results as a positive thing or as a negative thing? Because we probably have both, right?
Yeah. What comes to mind for me is from the 4 Stages of Psychological Safety, the book by Timothy Clark. They talk about the blue zones and the red zones. And I think that's a perfect example of the positive ways and maybe the negative ways to try to have collaboration. So, for an example, competition may bring people's walls up, but collaboration may help bring them down. So collaboration would be that blue zone and competition may be that red zone. So I think there's different ways to do things, and reminding yourself what's maybe in the red zone and what's in the blue zone can help build contributor safety.
Oh, so I love that. So collaboration versus competition.
Mhm.
Competition is good, but it can go very sideways. It can go sideways very quickly, right?
Mhm.
Oh, so what are some of the things that are in the blue zone where we want to be?
Um, I have the book. Would you like me to read some of them?
Oh, sure.
So in the blue zone, we have collaboration, alignment, engagement, confidence, risk taking, fast feedback, renewal and resilience, manageable stress, self efficacy, initiative and resourcefulness, and creativity.
That's all. Whoops, where'd I go? There I am. Uh, you brought up alignment in the blue zone. And what I think is cool, because we always talk about relationship building is the number one thing that we do, right? If you want to build a high performing team, you have to know how to build authentic relationships, not those fake relationships that everybody can smell. We want to build real relationships. And one way, because I always ask the question, well, how do you build a relationship with somebody you don't like? Well, first thing you want to find that common ground, right? And one of the common grounds that I have always found when I go to build an authentic relationship with somebody who I may not really get along with is that alignment piece, because we're both aligned to the goal of the team, the end goal of the team. We may not be aligned with how to get there, but we're aligned to that main goal. Now, if you have somebody that's not aligned to that main goal of the team, that's a different story. That's somebody that needs to be removed from the team. But for the most part, you're going to align with that end goal for the team. And that is a great way to actually build relationships, start that foundational, authentic relationship with that individual who you may not get along with. I love that that's in the blue zone, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I actually have a story for this one as well.
I love it.
So first off, I do think that by giving the autonomy and the ability to direct your own decisions and kind of direct your own path on a project, not only does it give more space for the individual to be creative, but it also gives them a little bit more buy-in because it's something that they can be creative with, and there aren't these rigid rules necessarily, or like, a manager that's micromanaging them and asking them to check in 24/7 and all those things. So I feel like you're hopefully able to get better results from that standpoint, even if it may not work out how you think. And that's kind of where my story comes in as well. Before I was an instructional designer, I worked on the team in the technology side. And George actually had a bunch of professional development courses that needed to be written out and built. And I asked him if I could take those on. And the first one was obviously the hardest. I had to figure a lot of things out, and George really did give me the space to be creative and figure out the best way to do them. But once I got that first one finished, we were able to kind of go through it and massage it, critique it, and make it a really great course. And then from there, because I was so passionate about the project, I was able to build out a bunch more courses. And just because of that autonomy and the creative space that George gave me, we were able to get some really great results from it.
I remember that as well. And the amazing part was the way you took that on. It was really easy to provide that space. So that kind of, as a leader, sometimes you just provide air cover and let people do, just get out of the way, provide air cover, make sure nobody else gets in the way. Because the way that you approach that, so when we talk about it being earned, you learned everything. So we gave you the opportunity to learn in exchange for the effort to learn. Check, did that one really well. And then contributor safety piece, you've been contributing at a high level on the technical side already. So check, that piece was there. There's no reason why I wouldn't. So if somebody's a leader out there and they have people on their team that want to do something that might be a little bit of a stretch, because that was a stretch at that time, right? Yeah, now it's like, got this. At that time, it was a big stretch, though, right? Okay.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the leader just get out of the way and provide air cover. That's a great point and important as well. All right, then. Here's a key question that I would love to hear your responses to. How do you know if it's safe to contribute? And I'm going to put a little bit of a caveat on this as well. I'm going to go from my own experience. So when I was in this place where it really wasn't all that safe to contribute, I would do the minimum that was required. Straight up, I'm going to tell you right now, I did the minimum that was required for me to be a decent performer at my job. Right? That's what I did. And it was not safe for me to bring my whole self in and kind of do that creative piece, because it would just get smashed. So I didn't do my best, right? I did what I needed to do while I was looking for another job. That's why there's turnover a lot, right? So how do you know it's safe to contribute your best work? Not just contribute, but contribute your best work. How do you know when that is?
I think I have a tie-in story. Like George said, if you're in a not so good place, I remember all I did was check mark. Did I do A? Check B, check C. And it was robotic, mundane, and just task after task while you're always looking behind your back. And on top of that, in a not so good place, it's always ask permission. Like, it felt like you were the student in class and asking the teacher, like, may I get a drink of water? May I sharpen my pencil? Little mundane tasks like that. It had that sense, even though I was supposed to be the professional, but I didn't feel like it. Versus here, it was a whole shift, because maybe I might have bothered George and being like, "Sir, can I do this?" And he's like, "Go at it. Can I create? Can I learn about this skill?" And over time, I realized you don't have to ask permission for everything, and that's where my skills blossom. For example, I was interested in graphics, and I just reached out to one of our experts in our media design team, and I was guided into the right trainings, webinars, tools. If I needed help, I could just see if they're free and everyone's willing to help me. And when I started working with our IM instructional media experts and designing simple IMs for our courses, and immediately I was provided with feedback. And it's just sparked like, oh, I can do this. And I can just take ownership of my learning and my contributions to the team. And instead of, "Sir, can I can I create a graphic? Can I write the script? I just do it. Just
So that's really kind of how these, when you have a team with a high level of psychological safety, they continue to raise the bar of expectation and quality, right? And they raise their skills. So really by creating that environment, then we not only encourage people to take a risk because rewarded vulnerability, I guess encourage and reward risk taking, but that also helps to really level up the quality of work that comes. So now, because Vic's able to do stuff with graphics, we don't have to rely on just the media team for everything. The media team, of course, is going to take care of what they take care of, and all the hard stuff's the wrong phrase, but all the amazing videos and everything that they do. But now we can expand their ability to dive even deeper into those projects by taking on some of these. So you can see how the building of that psychological safety really increases the breadth and depth of a team. That was a great example. Thank you. Would anybody else have an example?
Yeah, I can talk about an example. For me, the original aspects that made me want to collaborate are different than what they are now. So for a little bit of a story time, when I was new to the team that I work on now, I'm still learning everybody, and we have a lot of spiritual gifts that we talk about and that we try to align to our team goals. And George kind of gave me the freedom to elaborate on spiritual gifts and have the creativity to create a learning moment for our team. So by George giving me the ability to be creative and go learn something that I didn't know a lot about was what originally allowed me to know I'm able to collaborate with my team. But because of that moment, I now know I can initiate different projects when they pop up without, I guess, being asked to do something. Because George gave the freedom originally, I now feel like I can do things and I can have opinions and I can initiate different projects. So I think by doing that, it gives your team the confidence to initiate things and be creative.
Yeah, and really not only just can you, but it's I hope everybody feels that sense of appreciation from the whole team, because that is there. And I think that's amazing, because I remember that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big, that whole spiritual gifts piece was a big influence on the team. So it kind of focused back to, if I can, I'm not showing the screen, I'll show that in a minute, but that focused back to that meaningful contribution. We all want to have that meaningful contribution. And really, for those who don't know, we operate under what we call decentralized command. So if you're watching this and you don't know that, it's decentralized command. So the parameters of operations are set. We know what areas and what our main goal is. And then each of us are leaders within that, and we can come up with things that and try things out. Doesn't mean that they're all going to go live, right? Because I've had some ideas that folks don't that just didn't work. They just didn't fit the org, right? Even though in my mind they were wonderful, they really weren't. But when we have that opportunity and that decentralized command where everybody's a leader and everybody takes ownership over the success or failure of different projects and ideas, it's really the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, because we have 12 amazing people to do amazing things that we simply couldn't do if we didn't operate without autonomy, So that's cool. So decentralized command, for anybody that's watching this, that is the only way to go. And that is directly related to contributor safety, because I've always found, tell me if this is true with you or not. I've always found that when people have the right expectations, so we're aligned to the same goal, that alignment that you talked about, Alyssa, and then you allow people to really dream and think of how what they do aligns with that, amazing things happen.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, I think something else is you shouldn't have fear that you are lacking skills that you can contribute to contributor safety. And in the example that the book gave by Timothy Clark was President Lincoln and President Washington, and how Lincoln had a very awkward presence, but was a commanding speaker, whereas Washington had a commanding presence. Oh, did I say that wrong? Lincoln had an awkward presence, but was a commanding speaker. And Washington had a commanding presence, but was an awkward speaker. So my point is they both were really great leaders, but their skills were opposites. So you can bring contributor safety to your team, even if your skills are different than other people.
Oh, I love that. So a good friend of mine, yeah, he'd always say, my grandma said, we'll start with that. He said, my grandma said that you can't change the cards you were dealt, but you can darn sure play them the right way. You know, you can darn sure figure out how to play those cards, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, I love that. Actually, that's amazing. And then, so that's kind of how we know it's safe to contribute. And we have an innate need to use our knowledge, skills, and experience to contribute and make a difference. How does, so you're the leader. How does the leader giving air cover, in other words, keeping people out of your way, and all the naysayers out of your way, how does that help you fill that innate need to use your I always call them KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, but your knowledge, skills, and experience to contribute and make a difference? How does that help? So you're the leader and you're providing that air cover. What's the outcome of that?
I think that by giving the individuals or the team the space and also all the tools that they need to be creative and to try new things and to kind of um, or just give them that autonomy, I guess, from a leader's perspective. I think that that does give them more confidence and kind of more or maybe less fear that the higher ups are going to be watching them, or whatever the fear may be, just by providing that cover and making sure that they feel able and equipped to complete whatever the project is. I think that that is the important part as well. And it also contributes to all of the other levels of psych safety that we've already talked about.
Brilliant. Yeah, so it really helps to that air cover kind of that spans all the stages then, I guess, as you were saying. That's a good put. And as a leader, take the hit. If something goes wrong, so what? Just say, oh. And when people are asking you, say, yep, this is what went wrong. This is why it went wrong. I didn't provide X, Y, or Z. I didn't provide support or something where I should have gave coaching here. Didn't work. This is what happened. This is what we're going to do to ensure it doesn't happen again. And just move on as a leader. And that's kind of the fun part, because sometimes people want to get hung up that something didn't work, and just own it. Say, yep, didn't work. This is what we're doing. And this is what I did wrong as a leader. So when you're providing that air cover, you can't drop a bomb on the person that's doing the work and that the mistake happened, right? Because ultimately, if you were zoomed out, you should have been able to see that something was about to go wrong. So take that as a leader and really move forward with it. And then here's what contributor safety builds. I know we chat about this a lot: self-efficacy, self-worth, and then capacity of independent high performance. Because when we talk about a team, it's a team, an organization is built of people. So a team can be high performing, but you have to have high performing individuals within that team. And that's how you create high performing individuals, contributor safety, and that builds self efficacy, self worth, capacity of independent high performance. So you can do it on your own or with the team. So you're additive to the team. I always like to say what are you bringing to the team rather than what are you taking away from the team? And that's why the way we work, it's real, the sum of the parts is much greater than the whole, because we all bring so much more rather than taking away. And I think that that's a very unique and fun way to be. What are some of your thoughts about either efficacy, worth, or capacity?
I can speak on capacity for the independent high performance. I think contributor safety, if you can achieve that on your team, it definitely leads to more confidence going into an individual's performance, more confidence and more, I would say, like buy into what they're working on instead of just being told what to do. They feel like they have the autonomy and ability to make their choices and kind of direct the path that they're going to go down to complete this project or activity. And I think by having that buy-in, it definitely leads to better results. And like we mentioned before, it leads to that ability of and the want to do your best and to put your best effort forward and to welcome whatever feedback comes back with that because you're not scared of the outcome.
That's a great way to put it. And so if you have that want to bring your whole self in, that means you have a pretty high level of self-efficacy. And the self-efficacy really means that you understand that there's going to be bumps, but you're going to learn and do whatever you can to overcome them in whatever way that works. So you're confident in your ability to overcome a bump, as opposed to I like the self-efficacy. That's my favorite term, simply because it's very unselfish. It's focused on your ability to learn and your ability to perform in the future. So you can see it. And that also gives us what we call an internal locus of control. So it means that you're in control. And what I heard Kenna talking about was when you have that feeling of contributor safety, you really do feel that sense of control with what you're doing, and I've seen when kind of to go back to Kenna, when you were talking about the PD courses, I had no idea what you were capable of in terms of capacity, because you're like, oh, here's it. I was like, what is happening right now? It was nothing short of incredible. How you went in and you were just so energized and when you knocked those courses out, and they were very good. They weren't just done, because I think we've all had that piece where we've just done something and it's off the list. These were very good, very well done. So I thought that was really neat. And you never know, for folks leading out there, you never know what the capacity is until you get out of the way. As a leader, one of your biggest jobs is to get out of the way and just let people go and then come in and coach when needed. But if you're not needed, don't. Just get out of the way. I hope nobody here thinks that I'm aloof. Okay. So that really happens. And what's kind of neat for me is that when we talk about learning, since we're instructional designers here and team builders, when we talk about learning takes there's husband and wife team Bjork, I forget their first names, but they coined the term desirable difficulty. And for things to be learned and then utilized in a creative way to solve complex issues, you have to have that desirable difficulty. So people have to struggle a little bit. And that was kind of cool. It's kind of what that efficacy and that capacity piece are. That's neat. Anybody else before we dive to the next one? All right. Well, here's how to do it. Create contributor safety. Did I even say that right? Create contributor safety. There we go. Explain the why, assign the what, delegate the how. So my question for you is, as a leader, how do you get comfortable delegating the how and not micromanage and not, oh, that's different than what I was thinking? Because you can't say, oh yeah, you can't delegate the how and then tell them how to do it, right? That's the opposite of contributor safety. That's micromanagement safety, I guess we can call that one. How do you do that as a learner? How do you check yourself?
I think one thing that you do very well, George, is you will kind of just say, what do you need? And run with it. And then after we do have something to kind of look at and massage and poke and prod, then we kind of go from there. So I think equipping your employee with what they need and then giving them the feedback that whatever the feedback is once they have something to kind of go off of. And, if it doesn't work out how you thought, it's a learning experience for everyone, and we're in a better place than when we started. So
Good point, because we've learned something.
One thing that we do on our team is when we have an idea, we allow somebody to play the devil's advocate. And I think that's a great tool just to build on the conversation and think about the alternatives. So I would suggest even just assigning a random person to be your devil's advocate to bring that opposing opinion or side.
Nice. Yeah, because you don't want there's going to be unintended consequences of anything we do, right? So we want somebody to be thinking about that outside as well. Excellent. And you know what I found when and I saw this everywhere I've been, but when you delegate the how and the person or team comes back with how they want to move, because sometimes there has to be that check-in of the gravity of the project, right? If the leader doesn't 100% agree, but like maybe 75% agrees with it, and there's no huge red flags that are going to scuttle the entire company, right? That solution will work better than whatever that leader was thinking, simply because when the team or the individual says, okay, this is mine, they're going to implement it so much stronger than if you said, this is what I want you to do, X, Y, and Z. They'll do it, right? But it's nothing like if they own it, because then that self-efficacy piece, they're going to troubleshoot everything along the way, and they're going to self-regulate within that within the process, and it's just going to win. So if, as a leader, if your ego is in the way, because that's the only thing that would stop you from just providing that air cover for a process that's not 100% like yours, you have to just get your ego out of the way, because if it gets in the way, the solution is not going to be implemented anywhere near as good as it would be if it was somebody else's idea. So check your ego at the door. That's mine. Yeah. Check. There's the door. Put it up there. You ever hear the story about the worry tree? Oh, there was a guy, every time he would come home, he would rub his branch on his tree that was right next to the front door. He just kind of rubbed the branch on the tree. and then he'd come home, and he really wouldn't never talked about work much or anything. He had a very stressful job. And what was cool was, well, every time he walked in, he'd rub the branch. Every time he'd leave, he'd rub the branch too. Well, why was he rubbing the branch? Well, he was rubbing the branch on the way home to leave all of his worries there, and then he'd pick them back up when he was on his way to work. So that was like his physical trigger to, leave that stuff there. So do that for your ego too. Have an ego branch where you just leave that ego outside. Is the advice to anybody. Any overs before we kind of? No? Well, I sure do appreciate all the amazing stories that you had and all the input about contributor safety, because it's so important to really build that environment where people are free to contribute. Not just free to contribute, they feel good about contributing, because when they contribute and they're getting coaching along the way and feedback, we all grow. So dare we do our tagline? Dare we do it?
Let's try it.
All right. Melissa, why don't you do the countdown this time? Because I goof it every time.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. This is what
learning feels like. I think we're close. If we didn't get it, we didn't get it. Okay. Well, we didn't get it. We're getting there. Well, thanks everybody. Bye.